The current version of tennis, which is widely regarded to be lawn tennis, which was created in England in the 1800s, on Wikipedia is described as having close connections to various field games, such as croquet and bowls. It is often referred to as the gentleman's sport, and the men's singles at Wimbledon is still called officially the gentleman's singles. By definition then, this sport was originally envisaged as a gentle and classy sport in the same family as croquet or bowls, and it was never conceived as a sport for professionals, just for upper and middle class amateurs. It was merely a posh hobby, I suppose. Quite clearly, the intensity of the sport has increased in the intervening years since the 1800s. Rackets, courts, balls and aspects of that nature have been big contributors to that change, and I'm quite sure that all modern tennis players are delighted that the balls are being hit a bit heavier and faster than they were 100 or so years ago. However, there might be a price to pay for this harder hitting and longer rallies. The number of high potential top players who are missing from the men's game at the moment is something we can't ignore. There are the obvious ones like Carlos Alcaraz, but there are other top players, Holger Rune, Arthur Fils, Jack Draper, who have long-term injuries of various sorts. There are even players who haven't had significant time away from the tour, such as Taylor Fritz, who have been managing long-term injury issues whilst trying to compete. If you're one of the top players, not only are you playing the highest level of tennis, but you're also playing the highest amount of matches. Furthermore, the length of each match itself is trending upwards on average. Last year we saw the longest ever final of the French Open, and this year we saw the longest ever quarter-final at Wimbledon, to give a couple of examples. So record-length matches are starting to feel quite common these days. Specifically, there seems to be a correlation between those players who are synonymous with heavy hitting and those players that are prone to injury. Even among the big three, Nadal is widely considered to be the one most associated with power, and although not all of his injuries are due to that, it's likely that it's not a coincidence that he is the most injured, was the most frequently injured of that cohort. Nadal's even had an injury that's very similar to the one that Alcaraz is dealing with at the moment. Del Potro and Thiem are a couple of examples of players who've had explosive ground strokes and have had their career terminated early, in part or totally due to injury. My main hope is that the people who are in charge of setting up and running these tours are starting to take notice of this trend. There are so many incentives for the players to play loads of tournaments. Some events are mandatory, some events give out appearance fees, and almost all events give out ranking points, and the ones that don't, like the Six King Slam, give out a massive paycheck to the few top players that play that is hard to ignore. For some time now, Djokovic has been reducing the number of events in his schedule, and it makes perfect sense for someone in their late 30s going on 40. But it's not only the legendary granddads that are following this path. Jannik Sinner, who has won all 5 Masters events so far this year, has pulled out of the Canada Masters, which cancels any chance of the calendar Masters that people were starting to speculate about as a real possibility for him. There are 4 Grand Slams as the highest level of tournaments on the tour each year. Next below that, arguably, the Nitto ATP finals. Beyond that, the 9 Masters are the next biggest tournaments. This pretty much means we've reached a stage where some of the very, very top players in the world are maybe not willing to even play around 15 tournaments in a year, because it could impact their chances of winning one of the 4 most important ones. Of course, the spacing between these tournaments has a lot to do with it. The gap between Wimbledon and Canada is reasonable. The gap between Canada and Cincinnati is non-existent. And most of the biggest names seem to favour Cincinnati more than Canada if they have to pick one. Perhaps the whole tour calendar needs adjusting. September to December is 1/3 of the year, but only 2 of the 9 Masters are played within that period. Maybe it's a small point, but if the Canada Masters wasn't a Masters, and instead there was a Masters inserted about halfway between the US Open and the Paris Masters, would Sinner's calendar Masters still be on the cards? Like many things, it's a symptom of the tour having evolved over time, rather than being drawn up from a truly blank calendar. How many big name injuries and big missed events is it going to be before someone really tries a back to the drawing board approach?